Why, hello, in Soccer We Trust family. It's great to see you again, as always. So let's talk some shop about what we want to see from these games in June for the U.S. men's national team. But before we do that, why don't you like and subscribe before you start typing out your comments, because that would be pretty cool too. Okay, now let's get after it. Yes. What is up, everyone? And welcome to Frankie Haydock's favorite podcast, In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Conrad, alongside only one of the usual suspects today. That is Mr. Charlie Davies, since Heath Pearce decided to go peak Hollywood Heath on us as he flew to Paris for the Champions League final. We're not jealous at all. And today we are talking about what we want to see from these very important games in June for the U.S. men's national team, because I feel like some decisions are going to be made after these 4 games are completed. 360 minutes, Chuck, for players to solidify or play their way off of a World Cup roster. How is that for pressure, first and foremost?
Well, it's the pressure that you're going to need to rise up against, because we're talking about a World Cup. This isn't a friendly. This isn't a Gold Cup. This is a World Cup. So if you can't handle this pressure now, then forget about playing in a World Cup, right?
That's right. We can't trust you in a World Cup game if we can't trust you in friendlies in June. And so one thing we do need to bring up, it just got announced that Zack Steffan had to withdraw from the roster due to family reasons. We hope that everything is okay with him. But this is going to give a big opportunity to Matt Turner in particular. Ethan Horvath didn't end up being the hero that Nottingham Forest needed there at the very end of the season. They went back with their other goalkeeper. But it gives Sean Johnson a chance. He gets called in to replace Zack Steffan. But let's go back to Matt Turner. I feel like this is an incredible opportunity for him to grab this number 1 spot with both hands.
It is. It is. I really feel for Zack Steffan. I always feel like there's bad timing with Zack. Injuries, now with this being home for family reasons, it just feels like things haven't gone his way. When you have a player who's in the zone or things are working out for them. Matt Turner, it seems like timing's on his side. This is the thing that is confusing to me, is like the whole thing with Gaga Slonina. You would expect him to be the 4th in line, considering, he maybe had a couple of poor performances, because I think that the distraction played a big role with that, but he's not. So he still has to work his way in up the ladder. Sean Johnson comes in as stable as can be, but this is a perfect opportunity for Matt Turner. 4 games, he might get 3 of the 4, he might get 2 of the 4, because you know what you're getting with Matt Turner. I would expect to see him play all 4 games. Now, not 90 minutes probably, but you talk about chemistry. I know, Jimmy, you're always harping on backline being in sync with each other and the goalkeeper. Would you expect to see, knowing that Zack Steffan's not there and Matt Turner is your 1 now that Zack's not there, would you expect to see him play all 4 games?
No, I'm going to leave Granada out of it. I think that's going to be the 1 game out of the 4 where we might see a mixed squad, where we might see some of the players that we're clamoring to see get some valuable minutes. Not to say we won't see them get to play against the other 3 games. I think the El Salvador one's probably the most important of the 2 Nations League games. But with Morocco and Uruguay, and we're going to get into big themes, everybody, here about what we want to see out of these June games. I think that Matt Turner might get those 2. And then we could see a Horvath in against Granada. And then based on how he performs against Granada, how he, to your point, marshals that back line. How aggressive is he off of his line? How good is he with his feet? I think maybe there's some commentary to be had about whether Horvath is better with his feet than Matt Turner, which is kind of one of the things that, if you're going to give any type of weakness to Matt Turner, that would be it, even though I think he's improving upon that. And then because Granada's before the El Salvador game, if Horvath does well in Granada, then I think maybe you can give him the El Salvador game as well to really establish himself as a proper number 2, number 3 within the roster. I do think that Matt Turner gets the first 2, though, and those are the most important games for us. I don't know if you saw the rosters for Morocco and Uruguay. Now, Morocco, they're not going to have Hakim Ziyech, even though he wasn't really involved in Africa Cup of Nations. He's had a falling out with the coach a long time ago. But they have Enesri, who plays for Sevilla, who's excellent, scored a bunch of their goals. They got Harit, who plays for Marseille. Hakimi plays for PSG. Mazraoui looks like he might be going from Ajax to Bayern Munich. I mean, they got some ballers, Morocco, right? So that's gonna be a big challenge. And then Uruguay, there's no Suarez, but that's okay. They got this guy named Darwin Nunez. If you haven't heard of him, he's going to be on the move soon. Plays for Benfica. Cavani's going to be in. Fede Valverde, Diego Rossi for all you LAFC fans is going to be in the team. They're solid all the way through too. So those two teams in particular are really going to test us in a way that I don't think Grenada and even El Salvador will.
Facts.
So, right. So it's just kind of like, I don't know what your overall themes are about this, Charlie, and what you want to see from these June games, but I feel like we need to separate Nations League games from these friendlies, because these friendlies are really going to be pushing us in ways where I think it's going to feel a little bit more similar to the opponents we're going to have at the World Cup.
I think looking at the schedule, Morocco and Uruguay, for sure, your best 11. I don't think there's no discussion about who's going to be in the starting 11 come the World Cup when it comes to McKennie, Tyler Adams, Christian Pulisic, Anthony Robinson, Walker Zimmerman. Those are certified. You don't really need to worry about those two. I guess it's how do they play with certain players. Gio Reyna is probably going to be a starter, but he's not in. So you have to worry about, where's his health going to be come Qatar. I would expect him to be fully healed at that point. And also there's just that experience of, all right, this is what I need to do to prepare for matches to make sure that I'm not going to have a muscular issue. Then Serginho Dest is another player going to start, but he's not in. So now you're just trying to tinker. Where's Timothy Weah? Where's Brenden Aaronson? Brenden Aaronson is probably going to be a 10 with Leeds. I would assume maybe he plays on the wing, but he's primarily playing as a 10 with Salzburg.
Right.
Is this an opportunity to put him in the midfield as a 10? And you have Weston and Tyler as more of a 6, or you play with 1 6 and 2 8s, or, maybe you could tinker in the midfield. Yunus Musa obviously didn't have the greatest season at Valencia. Still
he's in and out of the lineup. Yeah.
But still an incredibly talented player. There's just those are the few question marks, is the 9 and the midfield for me. Obviously, I know you're probably really keen on the center back position, but
I mean, it's interesting. I think there's questions in every line of the field, right? Right now we have a goalkeeper question as to who is our proper number 1, and without Zack Steffan coming in, that debate's still going to be raging into the September window.
No, come on.
You think it's still so? Zack Steffan no matter what?
No.
You think it's Matt Turner? See, that's the thing.
No, but I'm saying I don't think there's a question, because if Steffan's not there, it makes it ezy, because a lot of people think Matt Turner should be the one. So then you're like, all right, well, Matt Turner's the one, and everyone thinks he should be the one because he's playing for the moment.
Of course.
Right.
But okay, for June he's in, but I feel like maybe if there's any moves that happen in the summer transfer window that could change perspectives, not only for the goalkeepers, but for any of the players in the roster, that September window ends up becoming really important, because if Gio Reyna, let's use him as an example, isn't available for those 2 games, that means Gio Reyna hasn't played for the national team in a meaningful way or consistently for over a year at that point. It's crazy. And so then you we got to start the guy. He's got the talent, obviously, to start for our national team. But if he hasn't really been involved, it's going to get tricky, I think. It could be him, because he has been injury prone lately. That one's going to be an interesting call on him in particular, because we do have other options. We've proven we can have success even if he's not on the field, even though I do believe he makes our team better. Now, I do look at it from – and let's scale back and let's talk a little bit more macro for everybody out there that uses these business terms, right? Let's get out of the little nitty-gritty and let's pull back a little bit. Because whatever the starting 11 is in these upcoming games, specifically Morocco and Uruguay, I want to see us play whatever 11 we use for at least 60 minutes. And the reason I say that is because things are going to happen in these games where we're going to have to solve problems on the field. And you need to be able to look around at guys and be like, I know what he's going to do in that particular situation. I know how we're going to move in a group if the ball's up high. I know what Serginho Dest is going to do in this particular situation. I know what Musa is going to do. Whatever. We need to understand that, because it's going to make every line of the field better. We have to be super organized when we're pressing, because when we win the ball, that'll help us transition from defense to attack. Now, I say that, and I say 60 minutes because I feel like when I first came on, I'm like, okay, I think maybe minimum 45 minutes. But then I thought, what's incredibly valuable, Chuck, is that if a coaching staff comes in and says, hey, guys, this is what happened in the first half. We need to do these 3 things to address these concerns, then we need to give that same team at least 15 minutes in the second half to implement what the coaching staff is saying. And the coaching staff needs to know which players can actually take that information and apply it in a meaningful way. And if we only give guys 45 minutes and we start 45 minutes and then all of a sudden we make 3 changes at halftime, we never allow a flow or rhythm to exist within the team, that rapport and camaraderie and trust in high pressure situations. But the problem is on this, Chuck, and I can't wait to get your thoughts on this, but the problem with this is if we give more minutes to a specific group, that takes away minutes and opportunities for guys that we want to see that have kind of been on the fringes who probably deserve a chance as well.
And that goes right into the number 9 conversation. I want to see Haji Wright. I want to see what he looks like with this group. I want to see.
Do you want to start him? You should start him then.
But at the same time, Jesus Ferreira, who's on a tear right now, why wouldn't you test him against Morocco and Uruguay?
Right.
Because that'll give you a better indication if this is a striker, because he's in the form he's in right now, and he I guess he gels well with this group. If he can't produce against Morocco and Uruguay, he's answered the question for you. And it's not so much goals and assists, but how he plays. Is he impactful? Does he make good runs into the channels? Can he stretch the back line like he does in MLS right now? If he can do that, then you're saying, okay, I have confidence that he could lead the line possibly in Qatar. Now,
I like that.
The flip side is, I know what he can produce. Maybe I go Haji Wright against Morocco, or I start Haji Wright against Uruguay and see how that looks. Maybe in training, he gives you a good indication that, all right, maybe we can use him as a super sub. You never know how the trainings are. And I think that's going to play into who starts at right back. Is it Yedlin? Is it Scally? Or is it Cannon? Right? That's a 3 players who could start, and I don't think you'd have a problem either way. Because I feel like Yedlin has done really well with Inter Miami, even though Inter Miami have struggled. I think he's been one of the bright spots on that team. Joe Scally, he's playing at Mönchengladbach. He had an up and down season, but he's got minutes. A lot of people have been clamoring to see him. And then Reggie Cannon's had a really solid year playing consistently, and he's had a lot going against him. So talk about the mental toughness to still stay in it, try and leave. You're not playing, you're out of the squad, and now he's a consistent starter. So for me, that's a great one. And then I think center back Vickers or Long. I mean, Cameron Carter-Vickers, he had a great season, but if he comes into training and they're off, I think that kind of helps. That forces Greg Berhalter's hand.
Okay. What's interesting is, and this is going to happen. I already know it's going to happen. Can I just put a stamp on this 100% guarantee?
Give it to me.
We're not going to probably start a player that's on the fringes, right? Let's just say Georgi Mihailovic. But then we're going to start him against Granada. And then all of a sudden he's going to blow up and have like 2 goals and 2 assists. Like,
we've seen that. Oh my God.
But it's Granada. And what, could he do it against Morocco or Uruguay? We didn't give him the chance to do that. And that's going to be like, well, we should continue to play him, right? And El Salvador is going to obviously provide a different type of challenge in terms of they're going to sit back in their 2 blocks or their 2 lines and help and force us to break them down. And I think we're going to get some questions answered in that particular game too, because whether we have leads in the World Cup or not, there's probably going to be a game where we have a lead or the other team has a lead. And how do we manage it there? Can we bring somebody on when, let's say Iran gets a lead on us? We've gone through this before. We've played the El Salvadors and Granadas of the world that are going to sit back behind the ball, and now we have to break them down. So which of those players can come in and help us? These are interesting questions that need to be answered as well. But with regard to the center back position, we need to find the best partner. If Walker Zimmerman's the guy, we need to find the best center back partnership. And what I mean by that is, who is the best yin to Walker's yang, if that's who we're going to go with?
Right.
Okay. I feel like everything's still up for discussion, but Miles Robinson is out. We can't count on him to be ready for the World Cup. He tore his Achilles, and that sucks in so many different ways, and for him personally. But we have to move forward and start to plan accordingly, obviously. So when I say that, once we figure out the center back partnership, then it kind of extends from there. Who does Anthony Robinson like to play with? Who does he like to have? Who does he trust to cover his back when he goes forward? Conversely, on the right side, when Serginho Dest bombs forward, who's the best player? Who has the best rapport and best communication to put Serginho and kind of joystick him into the best spots for him to make plays? And then Tyler Adams needs to come into the conversation. Who does he like to play in front of? Who gives them good information to step into necessary passing lanes? These are the questions that have to get answered. And then I think everything starts to extend from there. And also, to your point, I know we want to get into the number 9 thing, and I think that your point about Jesus Ferreira playing against Morocco or Uruguay has to happen, because we need to see if he can do it against the best teams at our disposal. But I also want to see a Haji Wright. I almost feel like Haji Wright being relatively new to the team in this particular squad, and Greg, maybe you give him the second game, which is Uruguay, and you give Jesus Ferreira the Morocco game, and then Haji Wright can be a sub in the first one, and then come and start the second one, something like that. But we still want to see Timo Weah play up in the number 9, just to see what it looks like. So there's a lot of things. But also, this is an opportunity because, from what I understand, Weston McKennie is going to get, it was said prior to him coming off the bench against Juve, or for Juve in the last game of the season in Serie A, that he was going to get limited minutes. So what does that mean? Does he start and then you take him off at halftime, or do we bring him on? I'm curious about that, because it could be an opportunity for us to maybe slide somebody into that number 10 spot, like a Brenden Aaronson, Pulisic on one side, Way on the other, and then we have a Haji Wright or Jesus Ferreira up top. But I'm looking. There's honestly, like I said before, there's questions at every single line.
There is, and I could see within the second half him start to tinker in that manner. So whether it's Haji Wright or Jesus Ferreira playing up top, then it's okay, maybe we're going to take them off and move Timo Weah up top. And so Weah is as the 9, and maybe you're moving Brenden Aaronson out wide to the right, or you're taking Weston off and then you're moving Brenden Aaronson inside, and you're putting, it could be Paul Arriola because he's been playing so well right now with FC Dallas. But those are the kind of things that you could expect from Greg Berhalter, is maybe not starting them in that position, but in the second half, starting to tinker and giving players an opportunity. I know we still have Chris Richards, is injured. Rain is injured. Dest is injured. So I'm looking at these guaranteed, I guess, starters and the people you don't really necessarily have to worry about. You don't have to worry about the left back. You don't have to, which is Anthony Robinson. That is locked. No matter, the only thing that would,
he's our number 1.
The only thing that could ever happen is an injury. That is it. He's playing 90 minutes.
That injury would be really significant to our team.
Because
I don't think we have a out and out number 2.
Zimmerman
which is where Joe Scally comes in, because he can play both sides. But go ahead.
Right.
Walker Zimmerman's a lock.
And then Walker Zimmerman's a lock. I'd say right back is a lock, because not only do you have Serginho Dest there, but you have Yedlin and Cannon for sure. And now Joe Scally will get his chance to see what he looks like. That left center back, that's up for debate. And Aaron Long, I think, has partnered with Zimmerman before. Probably that's where Greg is leaning towards. If Eric Palmer Brown is probably the one that I would suggest, just off of form and how he's playing in the French Liga. I mean, he's done a very good job to finish the season out. But I think just off of chemistry and relationship, I would expect Aaron Long to get the start in this one.
Do you feel like Aaron Long and Walker Zimmerman
are the same? That they don't really complement each other? Right.
That's my only concern about that particular partnership, is that maybe they have some of the similar traits. What I do like about Eric Palmer Brown is that he's quietly very good with his feet. And we might need somebody like that to help potentially spray balls to get us out of particular situations, change the point of attack potentially. Not to say the other guys can't do it, but I think Eric Palmer Brown can do it a little bit more consistently, or at least from what I've seen. So I'm curious as to that being a particular edge that he could have over everybody else. But these are the things that we have to get answers for, right? We have a ton of questions coming into this. And it's absolutely batshit crazy that we only have 6 games to work together as a group prior to the World Cup starting. Again, I know there's going to be friendlies, and there's probably going to be, inter-squad scrimmages behind the scenes, and they'll get some questions answered. I don't know if they're going to get questions answered. They're just going to have things crystallized in their mind. They probably already had an idea about certain players in certain situations, and now they're going to be tested, whether it's behind closed doors or in these 6 games. We had 4 in June to get into. Any other themes, Chuck, that you're looking forward to? One of the things I'm concerned about is because we can tinker so much, because we do have some amazing depth in the front 3, and including, let's say, our number 10. We have options and we can try different things. But to kind of get back to what I was saying before, I want us to stick with something for a little bit of time. And if it's not working, not feel sorry for ourselves, but try to push through it and try to solve problems, because that's what's going to happen in a World Cup. We can't just tinker. Oh, it's not working. 15 minutes later, change something. Yeah, obviously you can switch sides, or you can do little things within the game, but I don't know. It's interesting. And what pairings, and we'll get into it with our specific previews of these particular games, but is there any out and out pairing that you think is a must that we have to see?
In terms of pairing, the center back pairing is probably going to be the weakest within this group. If you're looking down the spine, You know, the 9, that's questionable. I mean, things can turn. Jesus Ferreira, for some of the things that I've always critiqued him on, which is being able to stretch defenses, the pace, you know, taking players 1v1. What does that look like? I always felt like you need, as a 9 for leading the United States, you need to have someone who has, you know, swagger, has a bit of everything in their locker, whether it's pace, acceleration, making runs in behind, hold up play, beating players 1v1 on the dribble. I feel like Jesus is moving in the right direction, but to be that guy, there's still so many question marks. So that's why I think he's got to play at least one of the 2 in Morocco and Uruguay. And then you give Haji Wright. Haji Wright has shown me some glimpses of, oh man, he's got some tools. I want to see what that looks like with this group and then against quality competition. The center back pairing, and I see some of the comments here from, you know, Kai718, respect. I always see him here.
What's up, Kai?
Just saying that it's weak, the center backs. We gave up 10 goals in World Cup qualifying. I feel like we're very fortunate because we gave up a lot of opportunities. In the World Cup, the competition only gets better. It only gets better. And those chances where you're 1v1, I think they intensify. And we're going to see that, especially if you're playing a high line and you're pressing. The opportunities of 1v1 where a center back has to get stretched and you're playing and pulled out to the wide areas, that's when you get in trouble. I mean, you have Tyler Adams, who's been remarkable at putting out fires because he has the engine and he reads the game well to help out. But in this World Cup, you expect to get center backs isolated 1v1. So I always feel like whoever is playing next to Zimmerman has to have the pace. Miles Robinson had the pace. Maybe not the cleanest with the ball at his feet. So I don't know where Aaron Long's pace is now. It used to be that was the guy. He was your first choice because he had the pace. He could put out fires. Maybe not the cleanest.
Yeah.
But now you have Zimmerman. I don't think Cameron Carter-Vickers is that guy in terms of having enough pace, isolating 1v1. If everything's in front of you, solid. And Celtic usually have everything in front of them. They're not a team who's getting played off the park in Scotland.
That's why
that's my biggest worry. That's my biggest concern.
I feel like, well, so we got En-Nesyri. Yusuf En-Nesyri plays for Sevilla, and when he's healthy, and when he's feeling confident, the guy just scores goals in bunches. He runs the channels well. He's good at creating space in the box. He's going to be a handful. All right, that's for Morocco. He's their number 1 target, I would say. And then when you look at what Uruguay is going to bring, I don't know if they're going to start Cavani and Darwin Nunez at the same time, but if it's just Nunez, so it's almost like which center back pairing do we want to see against each particular opponent? Because obviously they're going to give us different looks, I'd say, in terms of the type of player we're going to go up against, and obviously the support and where the service is going to come from, which then gets to kind of the next tier of this, the next layer of this conversation, which is our pressing system. Because if we're going to play a high line and we have center backs who are maybe not great with recovery speed, or when they're isolated 1v1 are maybe a little bit more vulnerable than some of our other center backs, or Miles, let's just say Miles Robinson now because he's not available, it's going to be interesting. Because at times I think if you press right and somebody has their head down and the way the ball's being closed down, it makes things pretty predictable for everybody else behind that pressure. But if that's not good, which really gets back to the point I was saying before, that we need to figure out how we want to press them, where we're going to press them, where we're trying to turn the ball over. And then everything else kind of falls into place. But if you have one person, Charlie, you've been out there, you have one person who's not pressing, like, you know, you've been there where you're number 9, you're trying to shape the play one side, you're working your ass off to get there to make it predictable for everybody behind you. And then the midfielder isn't actually stepping, and then they play a ball and that guy turns all your energy is out the window, right?
Talk about infuriating.
Oh, it's the worst, right? And you're like, what the hell? I thought we were pressing as a group. And that communication for me comes from the center backs and everybody kind of being on the same page where the obvious cues of when we're going to go, when we're going to stay. If that's off in the slightest, we're going to get like sliced through like Swiss cheese, baby. It's it's very important that we know how to move within a group. Now, I thought, to your point, we only gave up 10 goals in 18 games in World Cup qualifying, but there were opportunities where we did give up some chances, and we were either bailed out by good goalkeeping, or they hit the post, or they just missed their opportunities. I mean, I guess every team could go through that and kind of list those types of things. But yeah, I still think there's room for us to clean up. The one game that I lean on that I thought we were excellent, and I think our line wasn't too high and it wasn't too deep, was in Mexico City. And if we can somehow replicate that, especially for as long of a time period as it was, I thought we were excellent in that game for long stretches in a very difficult place at high altitude against an opponent that has been embarrassed by us over the last year for the amount of times we've beaten them. I thought it was a really professional performance by our guys, and we should have walked away with that with a historic win, but we didn't. I want to see us tap into that type of performance against these two first opponents in Morocco and Uruguay. But yeah, the pairings in every area are interesting, and if McKennie's going to get limited minutes, do you give Musa that chance with Tyler Adams? I don't think we're going to see Acosta, nor I don't think we should. We already know what he can bring to the table. Is it De La Torre that comes in there? Do we have Brenden Aaronson play the 10 and kind of see what our midfield looks like if we have a high-energy number 10 underneath the front three? Questions, baby. And I don't know if I have all the answers. I want to see these games being played.
All I got to say is Harry Kane, Raheem Sterling, like they have to have a team that is all on the same page to defend some of the players that they're going to have to go against, and some of the attacks that these teams are going to pose. I mean, if you're looking at Scotland, Wales, Ukraine, whoever we're playing, I feel like we should have the upper hand in terms of press. That we should bring the game to them and not exactly let them sit back or have us just sit back and defend and try and counter. That's not going to work. At times throughout the game, maybe you have to sit back and defend a little bit, but on the front foot versus these teams, our quality overall is better. So I think when you're talking about England, now that's a game where the tactics have to be on point. And England might not expect you to come out and press, but maybe there's that 10-minute, 15-minute period where you're on the front foot, you're pressing. They took it lightly. They try and get cute and play out of certain situations. You counter, you punish, right? For most of that game, I expect us to have everything in front of us, that we're compact. I liken it to us versus Spain in the Confederations Cup. It was a tactical, like it was masterful from Bob Bradley in terms of this is how we're going to set up, and this is how we can get at Spain. We're going to take out their midfielders. We're not going to let Xavi dictate, get on the ball and play to whoever, or Xabi Alonso. We're going to make their center backs make the game. When we won the ball, we were direct. There was no possession. We're not going side to side. It was, let's get direct. Let's get that at them. I think that's going to have to be a similar way to approach the England game. And then the last game, Iran, they're going to be super defensive. They're going to look to counter.
We'll also know that what the two results were for both teams heading into that one. So that could dictate kind of how each team approaches it. But yeah, I think to your point, overall, I think Iran's going to sit back, which I think that's where the El Salvadors and the Granadas of the world help us, so we can try to figure out how to break down a low block. What's interesting, Charlie, is with regard to Harry Kane, I love you brought him up in particular, because what I think England does well, and Spurs does it well too, his club team, Tottenham, he drops into midfield. And when he does that, he brings a center back with him. And that opens up space in that gap, which Heung-min Son and Kulusevski now, since Conte came over, exploit to great effect, right? And when you have runners that run from outside in, so Raheem Sterling's going to run inside of Anthony Robinson or inside of Serginho Dest. Now we're asking two of our our outside backs who love to attack to have incredible defensive discipline. And that in itself is going to be a challenge, which then lends itself to the discipline of our center backs. Maybe I don't follow Harry Kane. Maybe I pass him on to Tyler Adams. He's going to get the ball, Harry Kane, no matter what, but we can't allow those gaps to be opened between us in that back line. There's just some big, big questions. And I'm hopeful that Morocco and or Uruguay do some similar things to what we might see from an England or a Wales, Scotland, Ukraine, because that is going to be something that we need to have figured out. We need to see some of these problems so that we can solve them against a very good opponent.
100%. And I think set pieces play a big part of this.
Yes.
At times, we've looked very dangerous, and whether the ball always clears the first man, great runners. You know, Miles Robinson was fantastic in the air. I know John Brooks, who obviously isn't with us anymore right at the moment. Can Zimmerman be that guy in the box for us? but we were typically pretty strong on set pieces. If we can have that, I guess Weston
McKinney's our Mr. Clutch on
100%.
The way he finds space to get on the end of headers is incredible. I mean, he does it consistently. Doesn't always get him on frame. I mean, even then, remember we lost to Canada in Canada 2-0. Our best chance was off a set piece by Weston McKinney, where Borjan had to make a great save at the end of the first half. I remember it going, God damn, Weston McKinney, man, he's so good at creating enough space for him to get a meaningful shot on target, usually with his head on. He scored some big headers in the Nations League and World Cup qualify. I mean, the guy he's legit, and he always steps up in the big moments. So we need him to be healthy, of course. But I think set pieces are going to be crucial in the World Cup on both sides of the ball. Now, if anybody at home watching right now or listening on your favorite podcast platform, let us know what your themes are. What are your biggest themes that you want to see solved or answered in this particular June window? We got 4 big games. Do you agree with Charlie and I? Do you not? We'd ask Heath Pearce, but Heath Pearce is living that Hollywood life. Hit us up at Twitter as well, ISWT Pod, and let us know your thoughts there if you're listening and not watching live, which is okay. It's okay if you want to hit subscribe on YouTube. We wouldn't hate you for that, but if you just want to hit subscribe on the podcast platforms, that would be awesome too. And now we're going to take our first and only break, Chuck, because when we come back, I want to talk a little Brenden Aaronson and obviously get into some other storylines that are emerging around some of our U.S. men's national team players, so don't go anywhere.
Sonic the Hedgehog, you're no match for me.
This is your moment to be the big hero.
Oh, great, the Winter Soldier.
It is my destiny to destroy you.
Work smarter, not harder.
Hang on! That wasn't too bad.
Sonic the Hedgehog 2, rated PG, now streaming on Paramount+.
Welcome back, everyone, to In Soccer We Trust. I'm Jimmy Conrad, alongside the man, the myth, the legend, Charlie Chuck Wagon Davies. We just talked about some of the important themes that we want to see happen or get answered in the June window, so many games. And just so you guys know, coming up, we are definitely going to have individual previews of each game. We'll have live recaps after those games are finished. So a lot of good stuff happening here on the channel here in Soccer We Trust YouTube channel, and of course on podcast platforms of your choice. Make sure you hit all the relevant buttons so we can continue to build this amazing community. Now, Chuck, big news. It's official. Brenden Aaronson is heading to Leeds, United States of America. That's what I think they should rename their team. And I'm excited about it. One thing I want to say is, because there's a lot of haters out there, we hire Jesse Marsch and then they're gonna go sign Americans. Listen, Marcelo Bielsa put in a bid for Brenden Aaronson prior to Jesse Marsch taking over. They put a $20 million bid on him in the January transfer window because Bielsa really appreciated what Brenden Aaronson could bring to the table, especially in his system in particular. High energy, I think, is Bielsa's number one trait that he's looking for in players with obviously a high IQ. I think Brenden Aaronson has both of those as it pertains to the game and how the game should be played. And so I want to make sure that that's out there because this predates, the interest in Brenden Aaronson predates Jesse Marsch. However, it is convenient now that Jesse Marsch did coach him at RB Salzburg. He knows how to get the most out of him. He knows how to put him in a good spot to have success. And Brenden Aaronson's had a lot of success since leaving. Well, even with Philadelphia Union, he left being a Supporter Shield winner and went on to win multiple trophies in Austria, and then got RB Salzburg to the Champions League knockout rounds for the first time in their history, and played well against some very, very good teams in Europe, Sevilla and Bayern Munich most notably. How much pressure, let's go back to that. That was like my first question of the whole show, but let's go out. First question coming out of the break, Chuck. How much pressure is on Brenden Aaronson to come flying out of the gates and warrant the type of money they spent on getting him to Leeds?
I think there's a great deal of pressure. I wouldn't say it. I'd say there's more pressure on Jesse Marsch than there is Brenden Aaronson. So that's probably the first take is when you spend that much money, I know Leeds wanted him before, but when you spend that much money on a player, that's on the coach. He wants that player because he thinks that player is going to make the group better. It's going to allow them to get better results. And in looking in how Leeds play, I think Brenden Aaronson is going to be the 10 for this team. And Rodrigo and him are the 10, and Rodrigo's 31 years old and Brenden Aaronson's 21. So there's a 10-year gap there. And
Do you think Rafinha's on the move? It looks like he might be going to Barcelona. There seems to be a lot of smoke there to make that happen. He feels like he's done what he's going to do at Leeds, and he wants to make a dream move. And it's hard when a player feels that way.
I don't know if they're going to spend the money it's going to cost to bring Rafinha to.
I don't know. I don't know how they find any of their money.
Right.
I feel like the real MVPs of Barcelona are their accountants, because I don't know how they figure it all out. But keep going.
I mean, yeah, he's not going to play over Rafinha, and so Rafinha is playing on the right. 11 goals, 3 assists. That's your one player who's not going anywhere. Jack Harrison's done a pretty good job. I mean,
yeah, he has.
You have to be pleased with him if you're a Leeds supporter about his kind of output playing on getting the minutes that he has. So I'd say Rodrigo's probably the guy where Brenden Aaronson would probably get the nod over, because Jesse Marsch, which is awesome. If you're a player and the coach is bringing you in, not the sporting director, not the agents, not the fans, the coach who believes in you and is going to give you an opportunity to succeed, that's great. You're in the best position to start. Mm-hmm. So then
until you don't play well, though, like you have a game where it doesn't work out, and then all of a sudden the guy that has your back, he's got to make decisions it's all results oriented, especially at the highest level in the Premier League. Like you got to get results, baby. And if I just worry that Brenden Aaronson could find himself struggling. And then, I mean, it's good for him overall, because he's going to have to fight his way through it. And I'm sure that he will. He seems that he has a tremendous attitude for the game. But it's going to be interesting. And I don't think it's going to be all roses. And so I'm kind of curious to see how this all plays out.
No, I feel like no one should expect this to be all roses. The positive, though, as if he does succeed and does really well from the get-go, let's say going into the World Cup, that forces Greg Berhalter's hand. No? Mm-hmm. Like he's got to be in the starting 11. If you're performing in the English Premier League and you're playing week in, week out, you're a starter on this national team. Mm-hmm. You are an absolute starter. So where is that? Because if he's playing the 10 for Leeds and doing really well, he's got to be sliding next to Weston McKennie, right?
Right.
You would assume so.
No, yeah. I agree with you. I'm kind of curious to see how Leeds is going to set up, because if they still need help in almost every line as well. I mean, the center backs, they gave up so many goals last year. Their outside backs haven't really been that great. Eileen, Firpo, maybe not playing to the levels that I think people know they're capable of. Calvin Phillips might be on the move. Apparently he's Manchester City's #1 target this summer after getting Erling Haaland. That would be a big loss for them. And then Patrick Bamford's got to get healthy. What's the deal with Rafinha? I mean, there's a lot of questions around this team. There's plenty of talent for them to go put it all together, and they're going to have a proper offseason to make it work. But I wonder where Brenden Aaronson's going to fit into that. Because, though, of all the things you said, he's going to get a chance, and he's probably going to get a chance right from the get-go. So I hope he takes it with both hands. But as it pertains to the U.S. men's national team, if he's playing in the number 10 spot, I think Musa would be the guy that goes for sure. And
yep.
But then I think McKennie has to play a little bit different. I think he's got to be a little bit more conservative, because if Musa's playing, I think McKennie has more license to roam forward. But if Brenden Aaronson is playing, then I wonder if that freedom is going to be given to Brenden Aaronson, and McKennie's has got to do a little bit better of a job of picking the spots. But that's what we love about McKennie, because he is so unpredictable when he goes and when he stays. I don't want him to lose that or feel handcuffed in any way. But I also don't want Tyler Adams to be overrun in midfield, especially if we're playing against a team that can keep the ball.
He's just going to be box to box. And there's probably going to be a little bit more of an emphasis on the defensive part, at least your starting position. Not so much, okay, you got to be right next to Tyler Adams and you have to stay here. But I think just from a tactical standpoint, maybe he starts a little bit deeper and then moves forward, which maybe plays right into his wheelhouse, because the game's in front of him and he can anticipate things from that position. Once he wins the ball in transition, go ahead. He makes great late runs into the box out of midfield. So I don't expect his game to change at all. Maybe just seeing the game and playing defensively as far as like the press, being in tune with the team. And against England, they're all going to drop deeper. So
right.
I think it's about the first game and in Iran being in the right spots, being a little bit higher up the field, because we got to take chances, I'm sure, because we got to score first, and then we just got to keep possession to make sure that they're not able to create chances.
What I do like about Brenden Aaronson in midfield as opposed to out on the wing is that I feel like, and Christian's very good at this as well, of when they pick up the ball, can they break the lines with their running? I feel like that unlocks a lot of things, especially for you as a number 9, Charlie. If all of a sudden you have a midfielder that broke the line, and now you can run off of the shoulder of a center back in a way that you couldn't before. It's not like your back's to goal. Now you actually can peel off, curl your run, and look for those little through balls. If you feel like it's you're in a position to set up and give him an angle to play a little 1-2, or you could be the wall, he could play it back to him, or you can, in a little in, back, and through, then that's great too. But at least you have a couple options. Sometimes things get so predictable if we're trying to pass through everything. But what I like about Brenden and Christian is that they're both very good. And Yunus Musa is good too. Breaking those lines, I guess a lot of our midfielders are breaking those lines with the ball, but we need to do that consistently, because I feel like we struggle, and a lot of teams I see struggle at all levels, when they're trying to always pass out of situations. And if you don't have players that give you a little bit more of a dynamic alternative to get out of certain things, to spin out of tight spaces, it allows us to have that unpredictability for the opponents, obviously not for us.
Preach.
So I feel like there's something about Brenden Aaronson in that space that I would like to see. Now, again, it gets us back to what do we want out of these June windows, and will we see Brenden Aaronson in that number 10? I think it's worth trying, especially if that's where he's going to be posting up for Leeds.
I'm getting sick to my stomach thinking about it. I'm getting sick to my stomach thinking about all the possible options and who could play where. And this is the difficult part for a coach, because you've gotten to this point with a certain method, certain tactics and formations. Then you maybe have some injuries, players coming out of form, players coming into form that necessarily don't fit the same tactics and the same type of approach that you had coming into World Cup qualifying. So you get through World Cup qualifying, you're saying, okay, I got everything set. But now if things change quite a bit, you might be forced to change your approach of a 4-3-3. Instead of 1-6 and 2 8s, maybe it's 2 6s and 1 10, or a 6, an 8, and a 10. So you were playing heavily inverted wingers. Maybe it's both are just going straight down now, and not so much inverter. One comes inverted, one is relying to create the width on the right side. So there's a lot of question marks. I think striker, for me, the biggest ones are striker and the center back, figuring that out. And I think everything else will fall into place. 100%.
Interesting. All right. Moving on.
What's your biggest concern, if you had to say?
The center back pairing. The center back pairing for me, and I feel like I'm biased because I bring up this perspective a lot. But if I think Walker deserves, obviously deserves a chance to be our number one, and then it's just like who pairs best with him, and then from there you got to get insight from the rest of the guys that are around them, including the goalkeeper, because the goalkeeper can see how they're moving, how they're dropping, the decisions that they're making. How are they on crosses? Little things that could ultimately decide a game. How good are they on defensive set pieces, organizing? There's so many little things that go into these types of decisions, but this is the things that we have to figure out, especially when we have these friendlies and relatively low pressure Nations League games. So yeah, center back for sure. The number 9 spot for me, same as you. Who is the best fit for the number 9 spot? And then I'm very curious. I want to see what the coaching staff does, because I think it's really important for a specific group of players, whoever they elect to go with, they just got to give them really meaningful minutes to go out there and solve problems. And I'm glad that we got 2 really strong opponents in Morocco and Uruguay that I think are going to test us. And I hope that they run out their best 11s as well, because that will be really important for us in particular. Now let's move on from Brenden Aaronson and the June window just for a sec and talk about Luka Koleosho. So he's got a great name, first and foremost. But let me give some context if you haven't heard about Luka before. He made his La Liga debut last weekend in the final game of the season for Espanyol. He played the final minutes for them in a 0-0 draw with Granada. He's only 17 years old, and he's had some chances with the U.S. men's national team. But out of nowhere, Canada and John Herdman were like, we're going to call you up, because apparently one of his parents is Italian-Canadian. His mother was born in Canada, and his dad is Nigerian, but he grew up in Connecticut. So he's got a lot of options, this guy. He's got an Italian passport, which has made his move over to Europe a lot easier. And he apparently is only going to be participating with Canada during the first 9 days of their camp. So just in their friendlies, and he won't be involved in any of the official Nations League games that would cap tie him. So that means he still has a chance to represent the U.S. because of this reluctance to play in these official games, which is interesting. Maybe we get him involved in our U20 team. I'm sure there's been a conversation in some capacity. Now, I actually haven't had the benefit of seeing him play, but from what I understand from the people that have, this kid is legit. So any thoughts on Luka, Mr. Chuck Davies?
Yeah, I have a cousin. I have a group of cousins in England. Their last name's Koleosho. I would say this might be one of those things that, hey, US, I have interests in me. So,
now he's a winger. Everybody, I should have mentioned he's a winger, and we
better call me up soon.
We have a lot of depth in that particular position.
Right, and US isn't going to be held ransom by anybody. We saw that with Gaga Slonina. As soon as Poland said, "Hey, we're going to call you up," the US wasn't like, "Oh no, don't do it. Here's a call up. We're going to bring you in."
Right.
That's not their style. They're going to give an opportunity to people who deserve it. And I'm really curious to see where Malik Tillman kind of where
we didn't bring him up either.
We
yeah,
didn't.
Right.
I mean, if he's coming from Bayern, he's legit. Where do they anticipate using him? Is this a 9, a withdrawn 9? Is this a 10? Is this probably not in the wing? I wouldn't imagine he's going to be played in the right wing spot. That's going to be interesting to see where they have him. Maybe he's the 9. We don't know. So
so the difference really quick with Slonina is that he didn't end up going in with the Polish national team. Now Canada is going to have 9 days with Luka Koleosho, and that's 9 days that he can be around Alphonso Davies and Tajon Buchanan and Jonathan David and I'm sure these players that he looks up to. I mean, you wouldn't accept that call to go into that camp, and they got vibes. Canada's got some vibes about them that I really appreciate. Not that we don't. We have a really strong group as well and a strong core that really like to play with each other and be around each other. But Canada's exuding that same type of vibe as well, and so I think they can win them over in 9 days. And that scares me a little bit because if there's a talented player out there that could represent our country, we obviously want to make sure he gets a look. But Slonina didn't go into Poland, and Koleosho is going in to Canada, and I think Alphonso Davies is going to win him over.
you never know.
Damn you, Alphonso Davies.
You never know. But we have enough talent.
That's true
in those positions. As a 17-year-old, you might be on the right path, but a lot can change from 17 to 18 to 19 to 20. So I think right now, when you're looking at our roster, you're not worried about the wingers. You're not even worried about the midfielders, even though we don't know who is going to be that third guy. Is it Musa in the end? Is it Aaronson? Is it Gio Reyna? But what we are concerned about is the 9 and the center back spot. Those are the two biggest areas of concern for us. So if I'm looking at this group, I'm just really curious to see how they line up against Morocco and Uruguay. And not only that, but how they play tactically. Are they playing high lines? Are they playing high press? How long are they pressing for? How long are they? Are they trying to get their center backs isolated to just to give them those tests to see how they deal with it? Those are all the as a psychologist, like you're thinking, I'm going to test these players. I'm going to see who I can rely on,
100%, both individually and collectively as a group. Now, for everybody that hasn't gone through a coaching course before, one of the themes for the coaching course is your 4 pillars. What do you do in these 4 pillars of what do you do when you're defending as a team? What do you do when you're full on attacking? And then what are you doing when you're transitioning from defense to attack? And then the opposite when you're transitioning from attack to defense. Those are the 4 things. Those are the 4 questions that you should be looking at when you're watching the team. What are they doing in these 4 moments of the game? And are they doing it consistently? Is it sometimes they're doing it, sometimes they're not? Is that on purpose? Or is it just because they're tired? Is it because one player is just not up for it for the day? These are all these little things that have to get decided. And man, Chuck, it's going to be, I'm already a little nervous about it.
Yeah,
because
me too.
I want these guys to play well. And ultimately, here's the silver lining, everybody. We have more depth and more talent than I think we've ever had before. And that's an amazing problem to have. But now the challenge is, can we find the right collection of guys to get us results and to do it in a way that I think we're proud of as fans and as former players or whatever it is, that we're excited to kind of see that that the evolution is on full display. And I guess that would be my final thought for today's podcast. And this has been a great one, man. Just me and you, Chuck. Screw that Heath Pearce guy. Any final thoughts for you?
It definitely flowed. I can tell you that.
Any final thoughts for you?
I guess it's the question marks that we have. If you're a U.S. men's national team fan, the only thing that you're really wondering right now is who's going to be at the 9 come Qatar. A lot of people are doubting Jesus Ferreira being the guy to lead the line. So if he's not leading the line, who is? Timothy Weah does not have the stats to back up being a striker, although he's shown flashes that he can do it. But putting it all together, maybe the way he ended his season, 3 goals in 4 games, that could be it. Maybe that's the opportunity he needs to get going. Maybe now the coach at Leo believes in him. Maybe the teammates are like, hey, if Jonathan David's going, we have our player to fill his shoes. You never know. So maybe that's the option. Maybe it's Malik Tillman, who's been playing like as an attacking, midfielder, withdrawn 9. Maybe he fits the bill because he's a bigger player. He's played with Bayern, so I know people are like, he hasn't really played. Well, he's got 4 games under his belt with Bayern.
They're not going to start him if they don't think he's any good. Just to throw that out there.
They wouldn't have brought him in. They wouldn't have made him commit to the national team if they didn't think he was going to play. Right. Whether he starts or not, they brought him in because this guy's special. He has qualities that are going to add value to our team, and so we're going to give him a shot. And so Malik Tillman said, you know what? I'm going to leave the German system and I'm going to go to America because they're going to give me my opportunity. We just don't know. Is it the 10? Is he that midfielder that we're talking about that'll get results? Because Yunus Musa, as great as he is, I love watching him play. One of the most technically gifted players that we have on the
only 19.
Team. Only 19. But we're not seeing an end product from him.
Not yet.
In that position. Not yet. But right now, we're not seeing that. So is there an option that could potentially do that?
So it's when you just so everybody knows end product. It doesn't necessarily mean goals for you or assists. It's still connecting dots in a positive way that leads to a goal, right? Like maybe the hockey assist where you're getting the second assist. You're the one that's breaking the line.
But also goals and assists. That's what
that helps too. But maybe I'm just in defense of him. Maybe he's not being asked to do that when that's he's deferring to Weston McKennie to be that guy instead. Mm-hmm. I don't know. I didn't mean to interrupt your final thought. Keep going.
I love it. So I'm good. What's your final thought?
No, that was it. I'm just really excited for these games. They're starting next week. We're obviously going to continue to apply you guys with as many special guests as we possibly can, including Julian Lescott. He's going to come on soon and hopefully act like he remembers me. I don't know if he will or not, but that'll keep that inside joke for all of our
he knows Gooch will smash him in the arm wrestling competition too.
That too 100%. So on behalf of producer Des, producer Alex, Charlie, Chuck Wagon, Davies, and I guess that guy Hollywood Heath Pearce too, I'm Jimmy Conrad saying thank you for listening to and watching In Soccer We Trust, and we'll see you next week for a lot of big episodes, including previews and recaps of all of the games, including the first one on June 1st against Morocco. See you guys soon. Later.